You ready?
Are we ready? Here we are. Just
All right.
pretend we're hanging out.
Okay.
I mean, we are
With a
hanging
camera.
out. With a camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we getting ourselves into today?
So we are talking about self-sabotage today, which is a great topic.
My goodness.
I know.
What about it? How many people, or in general, I think everyone goes through it.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone. Even if it might be a little bit, but then there are areas where you can go really down the rabbit hole into sabotaging self.
What are some of the areas where you've done some self-sabotage, or not even you, but like that are common that you have found for people?
Well, I think the most common thing is really thinking that you are not enough. Right. And then going down that whole negative victimhood of not being able or capable. And that thus can lead to a lot of stress and or anxiety and or that feeling of, what's that word that we used? Just feeling stuck or frozen or like unable to just move forward.
Yeah. What is the word?
Remember? Debilitating.
Yeah, debilitating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very debilitating.
Hold on. Okay. No worries.
Get out of here with that cough, Jenna. You're getting married this week.
We can start over.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got this, Arturo? You self-sabotage right there. You know you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back to our channel.
Yeah, let's just come back to it. Let's just can we cut and then do it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to our podcast, Molly.
Welcome to the F2 podcast.
F2 today.
F2.
So we're going to be talking about self-sabotage.
Yes.
Yeah. And the different areas where people self-sabotage and what it is that we can do to help stop that terrible habit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a habit.
Yeah. So what are some of the areas where you have personally, or you feel like people usually tend to self-sabotage before getting into the psychology of why people do it?
I think that people can get stuck in the victimhood mentality and thinking that they're just not enough. So these are areas in which really shifting your mindset can help change, honestly, the frequency of your energy to help navigate you through it. And so when it comes down to self-sabotage, I feel even for myself, there was a time frame where, to be honest, when I was younger, going through college and being able to, or quitting college at that point when I was 18 or 19, I believe, because I remembered thinking I was just going to be a failure. And so that very much spurred into, I'm not going to go to college.
Yeah. But what part of that was self-sabotage for you though? Because I think when I think about self-sabotage, I think about there's something that you almost ruin for yourself, right? You have you have a goal and then you take actions or act in a certain way where that ruins that goal. Yeah. So did you want to finish school and just kind of, self-sabotaged by making the decision to not finish?
I think at that point, I was just surrounded by people that were not there for my quality of life. So it was more so just being around people that weren't necessarily motivated or hungry or striving to get better. It was just people that were, again, when I was 18, 19, it was just oh my God, let's just hang out, party, and do all these things without having to think about our life and our goals.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I remember specifically being I'm going to be a failure because if I don't finish, who cares? No one's going to care. Why would anyone care? No one cares. And I just remembered thinking, I was so afraid of failing that I didn't even try. Right. So during that period, with that being said, there were moments in which I had met you, I came into this business, I then strived to continue my education, even in that period of time. And I really just believe it's just the people you hang around. So now I feel very lucky and honored and blessed, super grateful to be around people that are always striving to challenge themselves, to become better. But I well know that this circle that we are in is very unique. And so not everyone has the, they can, but not everyone is in a situation where we are. So there's a lot of people that might be struggling with a lot of stress and anxiety in their work life, right? And or in their personal lives in which they feel like they can't get out of that rat race, if you will. So it's like, it really can, I think that especially with the energy that we have, like energy and like our mind, right? We can, it's like, what's it called? They say the greatest war is in our mind. And so if we can't get out of this frequency of being the victim, we can see that kind of trickle into very much health related issues, right? So if you ever come along people that are always like getting sick or like they're always in pain, and then you're around them and they talk very negatively, it's like, how can we help shift people's mind to like just continue to get out of this self-sabotaging way? Have you ever really experienced self-sabotage?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the time. Which is why I asked, like, what are the areas that you feel like you've seen self-sabotage? I experienced that in all kinds of areas, from going to the gym and having, certain goals, like fitness goals, financially having certain, financial goals, maybe even, just like spiritually, like wanting to achieve something or like have this vision for myself. And here or there, I'll do things that kind of keep me from achieving that vision that I have for myself.
Oh yeah? Like what? Like what?
And let me just kind of back up a little bit, because I think that it's like you're saying, it's being able to like push past that hole that hole that you kind of dig yourself in by having a certain kind of mentality. Like you're asking like what, but that's what I'm saying. Like having certain financial goals or having certain fitness goals that I have that I'm working towards. And in some way, shape or form, I, find myself self-sabotaging when it comes to that. But I think that the biggest thing when it comes to being able to remove yourself or dig yourself out of that hole is to have the awareness, the awareness of what it is that you're doing. Because oftentimes I don't think that we're aware that we're doing it. And I'm reading this book right now called The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weist, I think is how you pronounce her last name. But she talks about self-sabotage in this way that a lot of times you don't even realize that you're doing this to yourself. And we almost have like a limitation, which is so weird to think about, but you almost have a limitation to how happy you can be, right? There's like a cap that you're not even aware of that is causing you to self-sabotage, that is causing you to fall into different habits that keep you from achieving those fitness goals or keep you from achieving those financial goals, because there's almost like an underlying root issue that you don't realize you have with that. For example, I think in the book she talks about, for example, like money. You have a specific goal to achieve when it comes to your financial freedom, but you reach a certain level, like a certain level of happiness, like where you feel comfortable. You don't even realize I'm only comfortable making this amount of money. Like you don't even, but because you think about it, it's like, that doesn't make sense. Of course I want to make a lot more money, but it's like the proof is actually showing that you're comfortable in this limit.
That makes sense.
And when you become aware of that, you're able to look like deeper and see, well, how is it that I grew up thinking about money? How did I see money being handled in my family? And when you start to reflect on those things, you realize that you are really self-sabotaging because of the like hardwiring that you've, grew up, the hardwiring that you've adopted essentially. And so I thought that was so interesting. And so I think that awareness is key. So when I think about, for me specifically, if we take the fitness side, I've noticed that I'll get into a routine and I'm doing good and I'm doing well. And then I reach a certain level of,
I'm happy here.
I'm happy where I'm at, but I know I have bigger goals than that.
Yeah.
They're way bigger than this cap that I'm putting myself. And most recently I'm thinking like, what is it about these goals that I am not realizing I'm not comfortable going beyond that comfort zone? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It's just becoming aware so that I can push past that ceiling so that I can accomplish what I want. And so I just thought that concept of becoming aware, like that is so key.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's how I've seen it work out in my life. And I say I see it all of the time because I think that there's always going to be new devils.
Demons.
New devils in a new level. So I might push past a certain fitness level and then I might get comfortable there and I'll have to push past more or in whatever other area. Yeah. But I think that self-sabotage can be either small or big. It can happen on the daily. I think when you're seeing it more consistent than not, then I think it's full-blown sabotage. Yeah. Because I don't expect perfection, right? Yeah. Some days I might get up and be ready to go. Other days I might not. But I want to see, at least for me, more and this is what I was talking about earlier today on
Rise and Grind.
On the Rise and Grind, that it's not about perfection, but progress, right? I want to see more days on my calendar that I have actually woken up and gone to the gym than not. It's not going to be perfect, but at least I can see that track record. But once I'm finding myself really not crossing off those days where I'm showing up and putting in the work, I have to pay attention. Like, how are you self-sabotaging right now? Where is your mindset right now that you are not pushing past that or allowing yourself to linger around this not going, not showing up that is not helping your case?
There can be a lot of comparing yourself to others that might be in a higher level or had achieved more than you, right? So like there can be that self-sabotage when you're specifically, I'm going to talk about social media, right? Because in social media, there are a lot of people that can flaunt or show off that they have all of these things. And so you're watching their highlight reel rather than the dirty details of everything of their everyday life. And so you're looking at it and comparing yourself to others. So even if you can really either like remove yourself from these situations where you're maybe triggered or if you think about, like I liked what you brought up, where even when you adopt ideas at a younger age about what money means to you, it's like, how can we shift the mindset of being stuck, right? Like here at that low and then transitioning more into a higher level or a higher energy or higher frequency, if you will, and allowing yourself to at least reach your potential, right? So it's like self-sabotage, like you said, it can happen daily where you can, sometimes like we'll have, like as a woman, I laugh at this because there are days where I'm just like, why am I crying and being emotional for no reason?
I was talking about that yesterday.
And then 10 minutes later, you're just like, wiping it off, like dusting off your shoulders and like, we're good. Like it happens, right? Like as women, like I feel like it happens more so than men, just saying, because we have such a huge emotional heart where it's like, we need to get this off of our chest because it's a way of releasing, right? So it's like I feel like I deal with it on a weekly basis where I'm just like, there are high highs and low lows. Yeah. And how can I get myself out of it? One, I have to really reflect on where I am. And then I think like, I wasn't here a year ago. I wasn't here 2 years ago. And I'm very thankful that I at least have moments in introspection because if I don't, we can just like burn ourselves out. Yeah. I can just burn myself out, which can be very easy. I think we talked about burnout a while ago in a podcast. But I think even with the whole self-sabotage, like I think, again, the key phrases I think people can get themselves stuck in is like really thinking they don't deserve it, right? It's like like you said, we have a cap on what we actually feel comfortable or what we actually offer, bring into what we deserve. And so if we're there, we kind of just like stay there and we're comfortable, you know? But if we are allowing ourselves creative space to like be with people that can help us like know our limit, move past our limit, and then continue to reach this potential, whatever this potential is. And I think that it's going to be an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
Like there has been, you know, if we think back into, I love to go through my childhood trauma, I guess. We all have it, even though I grew up with like very amazing parents. Thinking like, hey, like I feel like at a young age, I always got praise. So even now I realize how that ties into even how I receive love, right? It's like, I love words of affirmation because even when I was young, people kept telling me I did good. Okay, great. Can I do better? Like I was very competitive myself. I still am very competitive with myself, but I feel like right now I'm at more peace with daily life because I'm just like, I am where I am right now because I work to be here, but it's not always happiness and sunshines. There are, like you said, devils on every levels.
Yeah.
And so what do you think has been your best way for yourself to navigate through this awareness that you have now? So now you have awareness of where you are. Like how do you navigate to become and reach your potential?
Yeah. Well, I think that understanding those like core issues or just the core places of where I've adopted that mentality, like I said, that is number one, because then I can kind of see like, this is where this comes from. Oh, this comes from. So, okay, what do we want to do about it now? So I can be a little bit more just in tune with myself so that once I do hit that, like that place of limit, like my max comfort level, because that's what it is, right? Once you hit that threshold, it's like, this is the place where I feel the most comfortable. Anything past this, I'm not comfortable anymore. So now that I'm aware of that, I'm able to challenge myself and push a little bit like further. But I think that it takes a lot of self-talk to, push past that.
Positive self-talk.
Yeah. And I think the other piece is just really embracing the fact that this is the truth. Like, because nobody likes to hear that.
Yeah.
Right. Who in their right mind thinks like, I don't, oh yeah, this is how much money I can make. And I'm the happiest here. Yeah. Right. When it's probably something that you want to move way beyond. So it's like, how is it that I'm comfortable here? I don't think that it's a flattering thing to think of. And this could be anything. This could be financially, again, this could be like fitness wise or just anything relationally, whatever. Maybe even it's that, right? A relationship where you're not happy, but it's like, no, you seem to be very comfortable here. Even though you're saying something different, it's like, well, it seems like you really are. So like, what are those things, those layers? And so realizing it is one thing. And then for me, as far as like the way that I work through it is not only just being aware, but having the ability to embrace like, okay, this is my truth. How can we and where can we move past it? So I think, like you're saying, it's work. It's not really like, okay, I'm aware that this is the reason why I self-sabotage. It's like, okay, now you have the information. Now what do you do with it? Because you can choose to not do anything, or you can choose to challenge yourself a little bit more. And any time that you challenge yourself, it's very, very, very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. So you have to have that ability to talk to yourself and either have that community or have those affirmations that are going to push you past those comfort zones. Because I don't think that and I think that there are some things that you can't really always do on your own. And you do need community in that sense. You do need different tools. You might need to invest in yourself to have that level of accountability or have that person that is going to be there to help you walk through all of these things. So I think for me, that's been big, surrounding myself with the right people, very similar to what you just said, surrounding yourself with the right people, but but also feeding my mind all of the right things that will help me push past whatever it is that I'm trying to get through. And when I think about it being very much like Sabs talks about from, with the momentum side of things. It's almost like that phase where you are creating momentum. It's hard freaking work, right? It's so hard. So that work can look like doing some investigation and becoming aware. And then once you have the info, doing the work to, okay, what do I do with this information now? Because it's uncomfortable to face a version of you that you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it takes work, but then eventually you finally hit that phase where you're working on maintaining it, which doesn't feel as
hard or difficult.
And so I think that once you get there, it's, it's very rewarding, but you have to be willing to put in the work for it. Like you just have to. I don't think you can escape it. Like there's no way to work around that, in my opinion.
I know. I think it's very subjective when we say do the work because all of our work, every person's work will look different.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when it comes down to like, hey, do the work. Okay, what does that mean? Like you said, all right, become aware of your triggers or whatever that might be. 2, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to take action or not take action? Right. And so when we talk about let's do the work, I would suggest doing it in very small, digestible ways. And so even if that means like, hey, I'm going to then establish a routine, right? Yeah. So a routine that might look like your morning routine, like what do you do when you wake up? And or what do you do for your night routine? So even creating rituals for yourself can at least help establish almost like a baseline because we, again, like high highs, low lows. How can we create that equilibrium throughout a consistent basis throughout the day, throughout the week? And so being very mindful on how you're showing up, right? And so the work, even I love what you continue to do. I don't necessarily journal as much as you do, but you're always journaling and really thinking about your thoughts, right? And you kind of go back into it like, hey, like what did I write here a year later? Am I still talking about the same things that I did a year later? Yeah. And so Sebastian talks about it. If you're talking about your therapist and you're still going into the same issue, you either have to get a new therapist or really work on yourself or figure that out. Yeah. And so kind of coming or rewinding and seeing like, hey, like what can I do now to make sure that I step into my power tomorrow or now or whatever. And so I think it really takes understanding what you really want and then again, taking those digestible steps to be like, this is what I want. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps to get there. And so what does that look like? Yeah. And I think it's very important because I think that with people that might feel very stuck or like in their own way, it's funny because I'll have someone be like, I'm just like continuously stressed about what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, why? I'm like, oh, my boss is like a shithead, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, what can you do about it? I'm like, well, you can either stay in the shithead company and or look for something different. But then honestly, the grass is always greener. So really understand like what you're trying to do and shift your way of life. And so I think that even like my husband and I continue to talk about this because he always likes a challenge and tries to figure out what can help him actually bring more value to utilize his potential. And so sometimes whenever he's like in his job or a career, it always feels like he is not utilizing his skills properly. So he'll continue to be like, well, I don't need to be here. Like, whatever. Like it's still, he's sabotaging in a way because it's like, he doesn't really know how to navigate through a company that just feels like they're going through the day to day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I love that you said like, well, he's self-sabotaging because I think that when you are not doing the work or when you're not allowing yourself to be aware of those things. And that kind of sounds funny to say, but.
Or they blame other people for their life.
You do self-sabotage because it can either be the company or it might be you. Like who's the common denominator here? And so you are self-sabotaging in that way because you're not taking the time to look inside and see and figure out where you are the problem. Because you might go to another company and, oh my God,
again,
there
same
seems
thing.
to be similar problems here. But it might not be that. It might just be that you have work that you need to do in order to have a different kind of perspective or a different kind of experience. When you change your mentality, you're able to change the experience that you have in the very same exact place.
Yeah.
And so that's funny that you mentioned that with Charles. Charles, you are self-sabotaging right now.
You are self-sabotaging, but I know that he has a lot of work, like inner work to do as well. Everyone does. And I think also too when it comes down to relationships or like the dating life, I always think about my friends in which like they're trying to date and then they go on all these dates and they're just like, nothing's working. And I'm like, do you think it's them or do you think it's you? And then they'll be like, well, I know it's me, but I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
So that can be a self-sabotaging area in which like relationships or non-relationships or like the dating area can be really difficult because like you are so focused on making sure that you're finding the most perfect partner when at the end of the day, you really have to be the perfect partner for yourself.
Yeah.
In general, in life.
Yeah. And I think it's important to have grace with yourself too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I do understand the idea of, okay, if you're finding yourself that you're talking about the same things over and over, or if you have a therapist and you haven't, I get that, but I will, there's a part of me that also appreciates the fact that you can revisit these things for as long as you want. And that's actually one of the things that helped me. So I told you that I got a therapist later last year.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about how there were similar things that I wanted to talk about over and over in a sense, right? And I always wondered, well, do we have to talk about something new in every session or like, we already dealt with that.
Yeah.
And one of the freeing things that she told me was, don't worry if you want to continue to talk about whatever one case scenario again and again, like I'm here to walk you through it for as long as it takes, as long as, right, like we get to a place. But I think that sometimes there are certain things that are so deep rooted that it's going to take a little bit longer to actually sort out. So you might find yourself with your, with your therapist for, X amount of time. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad or anything like that. But I think it has a lot to do too with like the amount of effort that you're doing to put in the work. But I think that part of that thing that's going to create that change is patience for that change to actually take place, because it can take a little bit longer for you to see that change in that same exact topic. And I think it's important to allow yourself room to do the work and to do it well, as opposed to wanting to rush it through and think that you've done the work and then something else happens. Or even if you take the whole relationship thing, right? You sped up, you did the work, whatever, I'm ready. And then the person comes in and it's like, I am not ready because I didn't actually take the time to do the work or really tease something out that really needed to be teased out. And I don't think that I don't think that things will always be perfect, but I have a feeling that even when you do the work, sometimes it will come back. Like it will come back to either test you or to finish the work. And I think that that's okay. It's like, have some grace with yourself and realize that, it could come back and you've already done the work. You know how to deal with it, but you've practiced it. And so be kind to yourself. I think that is a really big thing. You have to be kind and you have to be gracious and patient in doing the work.
Yes. And so oh my God, I had a thought. Now I can't think of it.
So we were talking about how being patient, being graceful, even if you have to work through something for a very long time, that's okay. Just get back up and continue to do the work.
Yes. How do you think how do you think people can truly find peace and grace?
Find peace and grace.
Yeah.
That's such a great question, Smalls. How can people do that? I think that you can find peace by trusting your effort.
Love that.
So the way that I think about it is when I know that I am self-sabotaging and I'm trying to work through something, but I'm not doing the work, or I'm doing the work, but I'm not doing it to my fullest capacity, like my effort isn't 100% there, there is definitely no peace. There's no peace, because deep down inside, I know that it takes work to achieve whatever it is that I want to achieve. And if I'm not giving it my all, I don't have a sense of peace. But when I am trusting my effort and really putting in the work in that process, even though I haven't necessarily achieved that goal, there is an internal like peace. I don't know. I don't even know what an internal peace factor that's there.
Internal ease.
Yeah, just because I can trust the process. Like I know that I'm gonna get there because I'm putting in the work and I'm putting in the work with effort. Like 100%, I'm putting in that effort. And so I think that peace can come from that. It's not necessarily about what you're currently experiencing, but just trusting the process and trusting the work that you're putting in, and just allowing that to unfold. You know, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I like what you talked about in putting effort, because as much as you put effort, there also is that balance of surrendering with
Thank you. That's the word. I'm like, what am I trying to say here?
Yes.
It is surrender, because you put in the work and you surrender.
Yes.
You know?
Trust that process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally got goosebumps. Look at that.
Yeah. Now, and it kind of reminds me of this quote that I read in this book. It was a prayer book, and it's talking about how you do the work like it's up to you, and just almost like let go and pray as if it's up to God. So there's like that two-way street where it's like, well, I'm putting in the work and I'm also, praying about it and trusting. But after a while, you do have to surrender. I love that you brought up that word, because that is exactly it.
Yeah.
And there's peace in that. Like you have to trust that you're going to see the fruit for what you're working towards,
Absolutely. I mean, even last week when we had our event, right? So we had our annual Top Gun conference, and that's something that we have a small but mighty team kind of behind it. Well, we have like 150 people into our office. And there was that moment where I kind of just sat outside of our yacht, right? The yacht, like sat down for myself, and I looked out the water, and I'm literally just like, I did everything I could to make this event as perfect as possible.
Yeah.
And it went so smooth that I was very much at peace.
At peace with it.
Yeah. And I loved that, because I had a couple of people that came up to me. For example, like I've been doing this event now since 2018, 2019, where we create the conference and we had our yacht party, which we've now had for 10 years. And so every year I'm always a chicken with my head cut off, right? And so I'm always like stressing, like I'm always like yelling at people. I'm like, get your freaking chair. I'm like, why is everything so dirty? I don't know. But then this year there was a moment where I was just like, I actually really did my best to make sure that this was nice and clean. And people came up to me. They're like, you just look, and there's something different. I'm like, honestly, no stress, nothing right now can bring me down.
Yeah.
And I remembered feeling very much at peace in these moments, because even though it might have looked crazy from the outside looking in, I'm over here just like, we did it. Yeah. And now we're moving forward, and there's many events coming up, and I'm over here like, again, with my head cut off, but I'm going to put in the work to make sure that I'm doing every possible thing that I can to make sure it's coming back to the planning and preparing.
Yeah. Planning and preparing.
Yes, literally. Because like you said, it's the effort that you put in. If you put in 100%, you can come back to it where you wait, you're patient, where the fruits of your labor will come.
Yeah.
And so it's almost that whole feeling of what's the word? Just the whole feeling to be at ease, right? Because that's kind of what we want to strive for at the end of the day, just to feel very much settle down and okay. And
Yeah.
even though that we can be comfortable now, there's always going to be those challenges, and how are we going to face them? We just have to create, again, space so that we can allow even more challenges to come in or obstacles to come in, and then that we can allow ourselves to actually go through it.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. Because even if things don't go the way that you wanted to, hopefully at that point you would have still had peace knowing, well, I really did put in the work and I did whatever I could. So how can I learn from whatever went down?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've experienced that same feeling in other areas of my life where I have put in the work to see something come to life and it didn't. And you'd think that, well, there is still a level of disappointment.
Yeah.
But I think that beyond that, there is a sense of peace and acceptance as well. Acceptance of
the situation.
Yeah, the situation, because it's like, you know what? I truly gave it my all. Like I truly gave it my all. And all I can do is rest on that.
Yeah.
And
then move forward from that.
Yeah, learn from it, figure out, what you can do differently the next go around. But I think that piece comes with the amount of effort that you're putting in.
I love that.
So I think that's good. That's a great example. And the event was great. It went well.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was really good. I'm over here already thinking, what the hell are we going to do next year?
Yeah.
Because yacht parties are going to be finito.
They might not be.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Even with the community aspect of things, I think you have to have the people that will tell you even when you are doing something wrong. Like like we can have people that are always not wrong, but like in support of your decisions and whatever you're doing. There might be areas in which you have people around you that at least can share with you, like, this might be like, we can't have the yes man around, like telling you, I don't want to say wrong, but rather than the truth.
Yeah.
That ugly truth.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. The thought that I had in mind, this is kind of going in a different direction.
Yeah, it's okay.
Than what you said.
Yeah.
I do love what you said though. So we're talking about self-sabotage, which is different, but have you ever encountered somebody that you felt was trying to sabotage you and whatever you wanted to accomplish? I think that's another
Oh, that is.
And where does that come from? Like, why would somebody want to just sabotage?
That is so evil, Sandra.
I know. But hey, we're talking about sabotage.
Yeah.
Self-sabotage. We do it to ourselves. But have you ever had somebody
try to sabotage me? That is a good question.
Or maybe even unintentional, right? Ooh. I think that could be a thing. When you think about maybe family dynamics and you're trying to achieve something and maybe your family isn't supportive. Yeah. That could be a way of self-sabotage that.
I mean, it always comes back to my parents because they were always very much get your education, go to college, get your degree, all of that stuff, right? And so I felt very much like, not that they're continuing to sabotage me in this way, but they, even till this day, I kid you not, my mom will be like, you still need to get your degree. And I'm like,
really?
Why the F? Please stop. And then I'll try to just put her away. I'm like, I put in a lot of work in my career to feel like very sometimes adequate or not adequate. Who knows? Like I'm still trying to make my way. But I think that I think it would be a parental kind of deal. Like there isn't someone, like I can't think of a friend that's very high school or catty or very much like a movie where people are just like, I'm going to get you. Yeah.
I think at this stage, we've done the work
to remove ourselves
from those kind of circles.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just thought it was an interesting, dramatic
What about
question.
you?
Have I had somebody
try to sabotage you? Intentionally or not intentionally?
Yeah, I think that the way that I see this, the first thing that comes to mind, if we're following the whole fitness kind of the fitness goal or whatever, when
your coach. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, even here at the office, when the managers and stuff, they bring donuts, I'm like, yeah. Or the other day, crazy. So I walked into the house and I didn't realize that this is what my roommate did it for, but I walked in and there was a box full of the big bags of hot Cheetos.
Oh man.
Molly, you know I love hot Cheetos.
That is a sabotaging moment.
And I had that moment, that thought where it's like, she trying to sabotage
my fitness goals?
Exactly.
My fitness goals?
Yeah. So that came to mind. Of course, no, she wasn't.
Yeah.
These hot Cheetos were not for me. Yeah. But I had that thought like, how dare she, bring these into this household?
That is fun.
Yeah, but I think that those are like the little funny ways where I've seen sabotage taking place. And again, at the end of the day, it's me
your
self-sabotaging.
decision.
Yeah, because it's my decision to either partake or not.
Yeah.
But I think that there are certain instances where
you partake.
Yeah, where I partake and it's like, dang it. Okay, that was
the big bag of hot Cheetos.
Yeah, it wasn't even the small ones. And I sent a picture to Sharia, actually. I was like, Sharia, look, this is what I'm talking about. Because I talked about it with her. But yeah, those are just the little ways.
That is very true, though, especially even in like an office environment where the only thing people think about for whatever reason is to bring sugar and donuts. Right? Like, why can't you bring me apples and oranges? Like, I would be,
lame.
I don't know, like a fruit basket, right? Like, why not do that? Because it's more expensive.
That's terrible. But it always happens that way, I think. When you set yourself up for a big goal, there will always be things that will kind of test you or challenge you. I don't know. That's kind of how I've found that to be the case. But
that is a good one, Sandra. That is so funny to think about that.
Or like when Charles worked at that donut place.
Oh my God.
We were eating donuts
boxes
all the time. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's where our donut craze happened. Like that's literally where it started. I don't think I fell in love with donuts until that moment.
I agree with you. I grew up with an uncle who would always bring donuts to the house, but I didn't really care for them much. But it wasn't until Charles started working there, because the donuts, for everybody listening,
tell them.
The cronuts.
The cronuts were delicious.
Yeah, which if you don't know what that is, it's
a croissant.
A croissant and a donut, like if they just had a baby.
Yes.
And it's the most amazing thing that will ever happen to you in life. Oh, it's so good.
You are currently sabotaging your brain right now.
I know.
We're reliving these moments. This has to be like 7 years ago. Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's when we met. Gerald.
Wow. Good stuff.
Crazy.
Cool.
That was so funny.
I know. We get all serious and then
funny.
we warm up and the true selves come out.
Yeah.